Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today during this webinar for Nidec Motor Corporation, sponsored by Control Central. My name is Alexandra Diaz, Alex, and I am the Marketing Director for Control Central. And today I am here to welcome all of you to this engaging event where we will learn more about ECM motors and Nidec Corporation solutions. Please bear with us. We're going to go through some quick housekeeping points. This webinar is being recorded. We will be sending out the recorded version in a few days. We have over 100 attendees joining us today from different parts of the US and abroad. This is fantastic, but because we have over 100 people joining us today, we have muted all attendees. We are going to welcome all your questions and comments through the question box or the chat portal. Please feel free to chime in with your questions as the presentation continues. We will address them at the end. With that said, I will pass over the mic to our dear presenter for the day, Mr. David Starich, Director of Business Development and Training for Nidec Motor Corporation. Thanks, David.
All right, perfect. All right, get the laser pointer on here, so we're ready to go. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. Wanted to thank Control Centrals for giving us an opportunity to present to you today on basically our rescue ECM products, but not only that, just reviewing ECM motors and the different products that are actually out there and available. Go ahead and get started here. Scheduled to be an hour. We'll probably be a little bit less than that, but it really depends on questions at the end. And so without further ado, let's just get moving real quick. And first thing I wanted to do was just kind of give you a little bit of background, because I think there's some confusion out there. Who Nidec is, who's Nidec and who's this US Motors guys? Well, we used to be the Emerson Motor Division, and that may be something you guys are familiar with. Emerson was started in 1890. You can see the list of things that go on there. I won't go through all the details. Nidec did purchase us in 2010. They're headquartered in Kyoto, Japan. And we are the world's largest motor manufacturer when you put in all of our companies together. Everything from this large motor, and yes, that's yours truly standing next to it with pink glasses on. That's all they had that day. But you can see that's a large vertical pump motor, and we build everything down to, if you have an iPhone and your iPhone vibrates when you get a call, that is a Nidec motor as well. So just to kind of give you an idea, you know, I do work for the largest motor manufacturer in the world, and we're pretty proud of that fact. So just wanted to give you a good base for who we are. So let's jump right into ECM, because that's why you're here today. You're not here to learn about Nidec or anything else. But what I want to do is kind of go through the different types of motors that are out there, and then we'll talk about how we identify those, and then we're going to show you what we can do to replace those motors now as an aftermarket product. So there are 3 operating modes when you have an ECM motor, or ECM motors are programmed to operate in 3 ways. The first one is constant torque, and constant torque is a type of ECM product that, as you can tell in the name, we, or the OEM, will program that with specific torque levels. And those torque levels will be unique based on the system that they're actually producing. As static pressure increases, and I've got a chart here, all of these motor types are all starting out at the same level. As static pressure increases, a constant torque motor, because it doesn't know where to go to continue that constant CFM, it does drop off a little bit as you continue to increase static pressure. Obviously, it's not as significant as a PSC or a constant speed, and PSC, or permanent split capacitor motors, are really the workhorse for the HVAC industry for years. And you can see one of the main reasons we've gone to the ECM is they do a better job of holding that airflow. So how do we identify one of those? And I'll probably show this identifier again today, because it really is a key. The easiest way to identify a constant torque ECM product is to look for the plug. And this plug is on the side of all those motors, or all the constant torques, and it has these 5 rectangular plugs on the bottom here, and these are your speed taps, or your speed torque values signals come in here, and these are low voltage 24-volt signals. Your high voltage is up here in your L, G, and end area. So that's really a constant torque. If we look at a constant CFM motor, a little bit different as far as identification goes, and I'll show you that plug here as well. Most of the constant torque, or excuse me, constant CFM motors that are aftermarket available now. What I mean by that is they've come out of their 10-year warranty are going to be a 16-pin variety. And so that's what I'm showing here is a 16-pin constant CFM type plug. These are unique. They do monitor speed and torque to determine what the airflow is of a particular system. As you can imagine, for an OEM to program one of these motors, they literally have to take the furnace or the blower or the air handler to an air chamber, and at that air chamber they're basically going to control the static pressure, measuring airflows, monitoring speed and torque, so they know at a specific CFM with this specific size unit it's going to have this much torque and speed to produce that CFM. So they'll mark that point, then they'll make some adjustments and they'll find other points along a curve. Once they have that down, they can go in and program that motor. So as static pressure increases with constant CFM, so will the motor speed, because it will be able to keep up with that change in static pressure. So as filters get clogged or dampers get closed and static pressure increases, you're going to get the same CFM with this, and it really will work itself to death in some cases. And one of the ways this was actually originally sold was it's going to solve all your bad ductwork problem, and obviously that hasn't been the case, but it does a good job. It really is a great motor, and we've made some improvements there as well. So, and then finally we have a constant speed, and I won't talk much about these today. I just want to give you the overview of ECM, that there are some constant speed motors out there. A perfect example, that's going to be your outdoor condenser fan ECM products. We have an outdoor EcoTech. I know that there's other products out there as well. And it basically, you give it a speed or an RPM, and that's where that motor runs. As static pressure increases, it doesn't know where to go either. It overloads, and it's just going to only move so much air based on the RPM. So those are the three modes of operation. And we've been sending the contractors on the line here for years, your motor suppliers and your motor companies like us, we haven't been able to offer a product in the aftermarket outside of warranty. So what did that mean? That meant a motor fails, it's outside of warranty, you have to go back to the OEM, and when you go back to that OEM, the price is not cheap, as we probably have all witnessed. Anywhere from $700, $800, maybe $1,200 just for a motor. Not only that, it may not even be in stock. It may be a 2-week delivery. It's the middle of summer and it's 100 degrees out, and you got to tell your customer that you're not going to have a motor for them for 2 weeks. Again, we have to do something to solve that, and we've done some things in the past where we've used different types of products. We've taken out ECMs and put in PSEs. Please try to avoid that as much as possible, because what you're doing is you're taking away all the bonus efficiency or the high efficiency that you get with an ECM product. So I'll give you an example. A standard ECM is going to run in the high 70s to low 80s as far as efficiency goes. And when you're talking about a PSE, you're looking at 65 to 60% efficient. That difference in efficiency adds up over time to a lot of dollars. So just keep that in mind as you're going and making those decisions to replace. Please go back with an ECM product. So what we've done, and some of you may be familiar, our original motor that came out to the ECM market as an aftermarket replacement was our Rescue Select truck stock. That motor was pre-programmed out of the box, and also had the ability to be programmed back to the original OEM specifications. And I'm going to talk about that quite a bit today. But that motor is actually going away. And right now, as a matter of fact, I think we're going through our final part. This motor and these motors are pretty much the same. The major difference is we've gone to a 2-product replacement, and I'll explain why. The EZ13 is pre-programmed, ready to install, cannot be programmed. The Rescue Select Pro is your pre-programmed, ready to install. I got cut off there, but it also can be programmed back to the original OEM specifications. And these are their constant torque replacements of those types that we just talked about. Then we're also going to talk about the EZ16. This one's our newest product that's out. And this is your 16-pin replacement motor in the aftermarket. You may still see some motors, and you can see on here, you may find a motor that has a 4-pin instead of a 16-pin on the motor. A majority of these are still going to be inside of that warranty period. And while there are some products out there available, this motor is specifically designed just to replace those 16-pin replacements. And then lastly, we'll talk briefly about our PSC. This was our very first ECM aftermarket motor. It is a PSC replacement motor. So you will take out a PSC motor and upgrade it to all the functionalities of an ECM, ramping up and down, higher efficiency, and a very efficient low circulation speed. So those are the 3 products. Let's talk about how we use these and what are those specifications that we really want to know. So if we look at the EZ13, easy should come to mind as, okay, this motor is ready to go. It is ready to install. But remember, we have to identify, because this motor will only work with that constant torque. These low voltage pins take a 24-volt signal, and that's what tells the motor how to operate. There are 4 pins on the top, as I mentioned. Those are your high voltage. 5 on the bottom are your low voltage. So this is your identification. It comes pre-programmed out of the box. This is your pre-programmed levels. It is tap 1 is your low at 40% of full speed, and tap 5 is 100% of full speed. So there's options and variations of how you can wire this motor to get the different speeds that you require. And we'll talk about that when I talk about programming and why that's important and why we want to make sure we measure airflow even after we just drop this motor in and replace it, because it will have a significant effect on how that motor operates. We have 3 models now, a half to a third, a 3/4, and a 1. You'll see those model numbers there. They're all dual voltage. So they come out of the box at 208, 230. To change the voltage, it's as simple as opening up this little door and inserting this plastic plug or this junction plug, and then you tear off that black door and you've got a 115-volt motor. If for some reason you need to change it back, it's as simple as just using a little screwdriver to pull that pin out. But ships is 208, 230, because if you hit a 115 with 208, 230, you're going to fry the motor control. So that's why they are that way. And then we also have with this product is auto sensing rotation. So once the motor's installed, when it starts up, it's going to ramp up one way for about 15 to 30 seconds. It'll stop itself, reverse, and then it will continue to show or to pick the rotation. Wherever it feels that stronger torque value is where it's moving the air, and it programs that back into the motor. So it is auto sensing rotation. Uses all your standard belly band kits that we're using now. These are our numbers. You'll see some of the different OEMs, Goodman and Reamrood and Carrier and Lennox. So you've got all these different varieties. I know there are other options out there for you. This is just to show you, yes, we're using the standard belly band kits. And I would suggest making sure that we have that kit, because not all of these motors have a kit on them. Some of them have welded feet or welded legs. So we're definitely going to need a kit when we replace these motors. And you'll know that when you're out in the field. So that's one of our constant torque replacements. Our other constant torque replacement is our Rescue Select Pro. Notice it's in a blue box, and all of these boxes or these colors that you see correspond to the packaging, so it's easier to figure out which motor you're looking at. If it's a red box, it's that EZ13. If it's a blue box, it is our Select Pro. And yes, the Select Pro does come pre-programmed, just like that EZ13, so there's no difference there. Again, tap 1 is 40% of full speed, tap 5 is 100%. Exactly the same. The difference is it's Bluetooth programmable, meaning we've added into the bottom module here, we have added a Bluetooth dongle, so you can actually Bluetooth direct to this motor and program it back to the original OEM specifications. We have over 2,000 profiles that we've either have from an OEM or literally gone out and purchased the constant torque motor from a wholesaler and brought it into our lab and backwards engineered what torque values we need for that specific model. So on all these motors, there's a lot of times it's called program ID or customer ID. I can show you where to find those here in just a second. But if we have that number and this motor's out of the warranty period, there's a high probability we have the original OEM specification. So you don't have to go back to Rheem or Goodman or whoever. You can get it directly from your current wholesaler and program it back using your phone or your tablet. So why do we want to do that? I showed you the generic profile. In most cases, a generic profile is not going to meet the original profile that the OEM set up, which will lead to improper airflow, which means less efficient, poor performance, reduced comfort, all those things that we don't want to see. And I think the best way to do it is just to kind of show you an example. And of course, I'm using an extreme example because I want to drive it home. But keep in mind, not every Coleman profile looks like the one I'm going to go through right now. So the red line is the Coleman profile. So tap 1 on Coleman is high speed. And if you remember our generic profile, tap 1 is our low speed. So right off the bat, we can see an issue here. Here is your EZ13 Rescue Select Pro and or Evergreen, if you're familiar with that product. That's another product that's out there by another manufacturer. We basically have almost an identical profile, very similar, maybe off a point here, a point there, but really it just goes from low to high. And then there's also the Azure product. That's another product that's out there. So if you look at these two generic options, and you were to install this product and walk away, you install it at the customer's home, and it calls for AC on high speed, and it's getting 10% torque. I'm sorry, this is ounce feet of torque. It's getting 10%, and it really is expecting 30. You can imagine that motor is going to be running very slow compared to what it would be up here. What's that going to cause? Longer run times. I would argue if it's cooling and it's a humid environment, probably a frozen coil, all the things that you don't want to have happen because the airflow is just so low. And vice versa over here. You get into the heating season and you're getting all this more airflow. It's going to take longer for the heat exchanger to pass that heat into the airflow system. So it's going to run longer and it's just not efficient. That being said, if you have a generic profile motor, which we have, and we know this by checking our airflows, once I install it, I check and I say, oh wait, that's cool speed and that's heat speed, and they're completely different than what they should be, knowing that what should be high and what should be low. We can actually take our taps, and if we took tap 1, let me go back one. If we take tap 1 and move it out here to tap 5, so it'd be up here, tap 2, move it out here to 4, and so these two will come down here. You can see that we're really close to that line, and we're not going to see a lot of those issues. I would argue any of those issues, because we're close enough to that line to not see as much difference. Hopefully you can see that's a dramatic change. Not all Colemans are that way. Not all manufacturers do it reverse. But the point is, if it's not close to that line, if it's not close to the original specification, you're going to affect the life expectancy of the system and the comfort of the homeowner or the business owner. So we really did make programming simple now. Those of you, some of you I'm sure have seen our Rescue Select truck stock. We had a programming tool that had to be hooked up to a computer. That was our first version. Then we had a programming tool that would Bluetooth from the programming tool into the motor. Now we are using our phone or our tablet directly into the motor itself. So there's no tools required. The programming app is a free download. Here are the QR codes if you want to search for it. If you don't get a chance to take a shot of this, it's under Rescue Select under the Google Play and Apple Store or App Store. So once you've downloaded this, it'll ask you to sign up for an account. You do have to respond to an email to confirm that you have signed up. It's just a little security function there. Once you do and you sign in, you log in, you create your own login and password, and you're going to come up to this screen. The first thing it's asking you is, okay, do you have a part number, an OEM original part number? That's what that 118 number is here. However, if I don't know where, I'm just not sure where to find it, I click on this little question mark. It might be hard to see on your screen, but if I click on that question mark, it brings up exactly which part numbers by OEM we want to find. So here's the Goodman. It's called Goodman P/N. And down here's your ream root. It's called program ID. So these are the numbers we want to use. And all of the different OEMs, this is just a screenshot. You'll be able to scroll through here and find the OEM that you're replacing on that constant torque side and find out which part number to use. I can tell you a lot of guys will download this app, and the first thing they're going to do is find one of their recent, I'll give an example, they're going to find a ream number, the 51 dash part number, and it's for a brand new system or a system that's only maybe 2 years old. I probably don't have that profile yet, only because it's not in the aftermarket. We can't step on the toes of our OEMs, but we also know that motor's still in warranty, so we're not going to be able to sell it. So just know that if you try one, it might be just that we don't have a program yet because it's too new, but if it's outside of warranty, we will capture that in our database and we'll know that we're getting a lot of hits for a particular number, and that's when we'll go out and make sure we get that program profile. So we do monitor those hits on those numbers. So if I had that part number on that first screen and I typed it in and I hit enter, and it came back with, okay, the motor should be a 1/2 horsepower, 120 volt, 6.8 amp, 1050 RPM. We need to match that with the information that's on our original nameplate. If that matches, we're good to go. If it doesn't, then maybe one of those numbers is off. Just double check yourself. Then we're going to tell it, yes, it's a Rescue Select Pro. With this program, you can still use the old programming tool if you have that, if that's easier. But so you have to pick which motor you have. Then you have to enter the ID number or the serial ID number. You can either enter it in manually, and that is a barcode on the motor control itself, or you can hit here and give access to your camera, and you can literally scan it with your camera, and then that'll bring it right into the app, so you don't have to type it all in. Gives you a place to put your contractor, your customer name, and you hit continue. It's going to say, make sure that you have power to this motor, and then it will come back with this label. It'll take about, if it's an iPhone, it takes a little bit less than a minute, which sounds like a short period of time, except for you're watching it and you're like, okay, hurry up. And then if a Google, it's the Android version, it is much quicker, probably 10 to 15 seconds. It's very quick. So that's as easy as I can make programming. Other things that you can do with this app, you can go in, and once the motor's installed, you can actually bring up what the profile is and make adjustments to it. Say, for example, the customer is adding an addition onto a home, and you need a little bit more airflow to get it all the way down or over to that location. You can start that motor, log into the motor, and increase the airflow by using the app. You'll just use, it'll be a slider, or you can hit a plus and a minus button, and it really is unique and quick. And I'll remind you at the end, I have videos that are available that show exactly how the app works and how to install all three of the ECM products that we're talking about today. So that'll be at the end. We'll have a QR code, and I'll also have a web address for you. So again, that's why we want program. That's why we always push programming. Excuse me, getting stuck on my tongue there. Homeowners aren't getting what they pay for. If you take it out and put a PSC in there, you're taking away all that efficiency. The risk of getting a call back because it's not heating or cooling like it used to, and they notice, believe me. And then misdiagnosis by the next technician. Say the next guy comes in and they put in the wrong motor. There's no way of knowing, or they didn't program it right. It's going to be hard for them to understand what was going on with the system. And then, of course, as I already mentioned, you cause a system to work harder, and you are going to decrease that life expectancy of the entire system. So again, 3 new part numbers on this side as well. And those 3 part numbers are 1/2 to 1/3, a 3/4, and a 1. As I mentioned, same dual voltage, same auto sensing rotation if you aren't using the program. If you program, it's going to pick up the program from the original OEM, so that's fine, but you can also change rotation with the app. So if you install it and don't use the programming tool, it will do the auto sensing rotation just like that EZ13. So if we look at what we've done, and here's our original Rescue Select truck stock model numbers, we've taken these part numbers and reduced them down to 3 models. If you want to go with the EZ13 route, of course, you know, I'm a believer in the programming, as I'm sure you can already tell. And that's why I would suggest, if I were going to stock, I'd probably stock a 6633 and a 6643. And if I ran into a lot of 1 horses, maybe, but that right there is going to cover, you can see all these different part numbers. And even here with the other product that's out there, the Evergreen, you know, we get this down to 3 numbers versus all these other ones. So it is a unique feature, and hopefully you'll see the value of this motor really being a true truck stock replacement motor. So those are our constant torque versions. Now we're going to jump into the ready to install 16 pin, or the EZ16. You can kind of see the reference there. And as we talked about before, the constant torque CFM, or the constant CFM motors, excuse me, can keep up with that increase in static pressure. It's constantly monitoring that speed and torque to determine the airflow, and it can change. It does require pre-programming of coefficients based on the specific system, which was a challenge for coming up with an aftermarket version, as you can imagine. So our engineering department and our product management, they basically went out and pulled information from all these different manufacturers on how they ran a specific system by tonnage and came up with a good generic profile. So what motors are we replacing with this? We're replacing the ECM 2.0, the ECM 2.3, the Eon. All of these have that 16-pin connection, as you can see. The one it will not replace is the ECM 2.5, which was only sold to Carrier, and it was a very low, I won't say low number, it's a small number, but it was for a very short period of time, is what I should have said. And so there are some of these out there. If you have one that says 2.5, unfortunately, I don't have a replacement for it, and you will have to go back to the OEM when it comes to that motor itself. So that's our identification features, as we talked about. The nice thing about this motor is it uses the exact same wiring as the OEM. So there's no changes in the wiring setup. You have adjustable airflow after the installation, so you'll be able to actually dial this motor in. It does have a multi-horsepower function I'll show you here in a second. And this little box gets mounted remotely, meaning somewhere inside the cabinet, so you can actually adjust the airflow to dial that thing in. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at, you know, we did get a profile, a generic profile into this motor. And so that is where our engineering came in. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our EZI and we're going to install the 16-pin connector that comes out of the motor, the original motor, into the EasyEye box. Then from there, we're going to attach the 4-pin wiring connector that's supplied with the product. And again, everything I'm showing you here, this box and the additional wiring, this is the wire from the original motor. We include all of this together. There's no additional purchases required to get a box to control the motor, which some stuff out there now is requiring. But this all comes together. So that 4-pin connector gives our output to our motor. So 16-pin connection goes in. It decodes the signal, meaning it knows which speed taps are used for cool, which is Y1, Y2, and which ones are used for heat, W1, W2. And then we can set our horsepower. So once we've done that, we want to check and make sure we're set to 24-volt signals here on the side of the box. And then we select our direction of rotation, which will be on the blower housing as well. So you'll be able to select which rotation we have. And then lastly, we're going to connect the original 5-pin high voltage connector that came from the original motor. So coming off the original control board, or the control board, goes right into the motor. So it's really as simple as that as far as getting the motor wired. Once we get it back installed into the system, we just have a few more things we want to do. We want to take both of these settings, the Y and the W's, and there's little arrows on these little screw pins here, and we want to set those both to nominal. And then we want to take our horsepower and select which horsepower. These are multi-horsepower capable, but we never want to go up. So if you have a 1/2 horsepower motor, we don't want to set it to 3/4. It just won't do that job. It's only going to run at a 1/2. But we want to make sure we're using a 1/2 and a 1/2 application and not a 1/2 and a 3/4. It won't do the job. So once we've got these installed, we're going to remote mount this. Honestly, the ones I've done is I've basically ran that wiring out, closed that lower door panel, because I want to make sure when I check my airflow and make sure I'm getting enough, that I've not giving too much of that negative pressure by having that door panel open. So kind of close that thing up, and then we're going to call for heat or call for cool. I would suggest using whichever season we're in. Right now would be cool, right? So I'm going to check my airflow and temperature deltas, and I have a 30% up and a 30% down ability to dial this system in. So that flexibility, again, a customer who has added on, or their ductwork just isn't enough and they're having some issues, this gives you some ability to actually increase from what we consider a normal profile or a standard. You can actually adjust this thing up 30% either way, up or down. Very unique feature, and really is a game changer if you're out in this marketplace, because we haven't had a replacement for the 16-pin without going back to the OEM. And it's just a matter of making sure that you, the customers, know that you no longer have to go back to the OEM if you have an ECM product that needs to be replaced. You just don't have to, because we have those in the aftermarket now. Here are the part numbers for that. You'll notice that it's 5863 is a third. I would argue that would only be if I knew that's my primary business as a third. I personally would stock a 5862, 1/2 to a third, and then a 5860 will get you 1 horse to 3/4, and you've got it covered. They go down to a third. Keep in mind, if you take a 1/2 horsepower motor, try and put it into a third application, you're going to have some issues with length, because this motor is going to be quite a bit longer. You can see right here the difference in length. Well, it should be the C dimension, excuse me, all the way across. So that gives you an idea of those products. So one thing I will mention is that it is dual voltage. There's no voltage change plug required on this product, because the actual plug tells it what the voltage is. If it has a little jumper between pin 1 and 2, that means it's 115. If there's no jumper, then it's 208, 230. All right. So that's our Easy 16. That's your 16-pin constant CFM replacement motor. Last but not least, I'm in the process of actually updating this training because we've gone to our next version, or our Gen 3 version of this product. And you'll notice it looks very similar to our aftermarket, our easy products, and our Select Pro. The main difference is this is a true drop-in replacement for a PSC motor. So you're taking out a PSC, permanent split capacitor motor with a capacitor, and you're putting in an ECM product that gets up to 82% efficient. And we're able to do that with a patented motor control, and it takes that high voltage signal that would normally tell the PSC motor how to run and tells this motor how to operate. And we have five discrete speeds, and the low speed is the red lead, which is a 600 RPM continuous fan speed, which really, if you're running at 600 RPM in a normal house, you're not even going to be able to hear that system running. And we'll talk about that just a little bit as we get through this part. So here are the different motors. Here we've got they are multi-horsepower. You can see that from the listing here. The 22 goes from a third to a fifth. And so you've got your other options here. Here are your wires, and which ones are high, medium high, medium low, and low. And so on every box, you have your wiring suggestions for a system. I can tell you I had a 1/4 horsepower system in my previous home, and of course, being new with this, oh gosh, 15 years ago, I wired mine with black and yellow, and this was the motor that I had. And I can tell you my ductwork was screaming and whistling because there was just so much airflow. I ended up having to go right down here to blue and orange, and it works perfectly now. And now the new owners can enjoy the constant CFM, excuse me, the constant fan. So anyway, those are products. Again, I would suggest, if you don't do a lot of 1 horsepower, right here you stock in a 42, and then you stock a 22, and you've got from 3/4 all the way down to 1/5 on your truck. What does that mean? That means, hello, Mr. Homeowner, I have this motor on my truck. It's a high efficient product. It's a newer technology. I can replace your motor now, or I can head back to the supply house, and here's the difference in price between those two. I can tell you, if you have this on your truck and you offer it like that, they're going to say, absolutely, put that thing in, let's get it over with, because they want to be comfortable. The wiring for the contractor is very simple. Here's your PSC control board, high voltage in, here's your cool, heat, and fan, and here's your capacitor. Come over here, it's exactly the same hookup. Cool, heat, fan, no capacitor, and you're ready to go. So basically this motor is going to take that high voltage signal, and it's knowing exactly, because the black lead is being energized, that it's going to run at the highest speed. If the control board, like my old unit, doesn't have a continuous fan pin, which is this example here, we also supply a Y harness with this product. And that Y harness is going to go in between the door switch and the control board. So your high voltage that goes onto your control board, you'll unplug, plug one end into the Y harness here, the red lead goes on the other, and then the single lead goes where the high voltage came from the control board, and that feeds that control board. So when I close that panel, this motor is going to be energized on the red lead. So it's going to ramp up to 600 RPM, and it's just going to run, mixing the air, getting rid of stratification, making sure indoor air quality is running, and getting things out of the air. When a call for heat or cool comes, I've got a red lead and a black lead, both energized at the same time. For those of you that are out there that have done that, where you've had 2 leads touch at the same time, you know that motor starts to scream, whine, and eventually you're going to let the smoke out, because you've basically given this motor 2 115 signals, and doesn't like that. So this motor says, oh, I'm getting 2 signals, I'm going to ramp up to that higher speed. Once that call for cool goes away, it ramps back down and continues to run at that 600 until it gets another signal. So it really is a smart control that tells the motor exactly how to operate. That's not the best way to install it. That's the way I did, because I might be a little lazier than some. Another way to do that would be use a 24 volt or 24 volt relay using the G wire, and then you can actually give that consumer the on-off capability at their thermostat. So just showing you that all of these wiring diagrams are available with the product. So there shouldn't be any questions on how to do that. They're all included with all the different ways of actually installing this. And it is reversible rotation. Because of our patented motor control, we weren't able to change this to be auto sensing, and that's one of the questions I get a lot. So I apologize for that, but changing it as simple as wherever your common white wire is, whether it's here on this pin or here, you can imagine that just twists back and forth or turns one way or the other. That is going to be where your direction of rotation is. So very simple. Same control plug for the voltage. Ships as 208, 230 like the other products. Push in that pin and you've got your 115. Same brackets. These motors are all the same diameter. They're the 5.6 or 48 frame shell. So using all the same brackets that we use with our other products. Again, a lot of these products out of the OEM had welded feet onto them, so we'll probably have to purchase a mounting bracket as well. But just know that that's part of the program. And where is this product really going crazy? And where do we sell a lot of these? We sell truckloads to California, as you can imagine. Any of my friends from California out there, you know electric values and how much it costs to run your HVAC systems. We literally had a company, and I don't remember the name of it, that would go around and they would install these for the power company for free, and then all they would get was the rebates that would give into it. So just to give you an idea of the homeowner savings, customers that are really going to benefit the most are ones that are using their continuous fan. And why do a lot of people don't use continuous fan for that reason, because it takes so much energy. But at 600 RPM, this motor is going to be drawing less than 90 watts, or at 90 watts or below, basically is what I've seen. And we'll go with 18 cents a kilowatt hour, a half horsepower motor, going to save $280 a year. Now you'll have to talk to your supplier on how much the motor costs, but generally it's about $150 to $200 more than a standard motor because of the technology. But as you can see, that's a 1-year payback. All of our ECM products, and I should have mentioned this right off the bat, all the products we've talked about today have a 2-year warranty. So within that 2-year warranty time, they're going to get the payback for the extra expense to put in this high premium efficient motor. So here's an example. Over here is just heat and cool operation. That same 18 cents is only $100 a year. They will see the difference in their electric bills running it on continuous fan. So here's just another look at that energy savings. Here's a 90K BTU unit, and the PSC was drawing about 580, and then when it went continuous fan, because a lot of times in a furnace, the continuous fan in a PSC is going to be the heat speed, so it was running right at a little bit below 500 watts. When we put in the EcoTech into the same unit, it was about 410. And then it dropped down to that 90 watts like I talked about. So that energy savings of 394 watts a kilowatt hour, that's a huge savings in watts. And then over here is a larger unit and even more savings, 576. So you get the idea. It really is a product that if you're running indoor air quality is really a game changer. If you're running UV lights and their systems aren't on, they're not doing the job. Do we always want to run continuous fan? It really depends on the area of the country you're in. Florida, they would tell you we never run in the summer because it just keeps that humidity level high. somewhere out in the desert, maybe you do. You know, it varies. But if you're not running your system, your indoor air quality is not working. So keep that in mind as you look. You can see some of the other things on the screen there of why people would want indoor air quality with continuous fan. And lastly, one of the things, or I will come to the end here, but one of the things we talked about earlier, as static pressure increases, we actually did measurements on this product versus a PSC. So the red line is your PSC product and your green line is your EcoTech. At 0.7 static, we were achieving 250 more CFM over a PSC. So you can see this motor does a better job as static pressure increases, keeping the airflow going. Just to kind of reiterate the fact that a constant torque motor can keep up, but it just doesn't, it can't do as good as a constant CFM because of that, the programming that it has. We have all kinds of support tools. We have different brochures. We have an energy savings calculator. We have, this brochure can actually be produced with your company logo on it and customized for your area using your heating and cooling days. We have regional managers out there all over the country of 13 guys on our team, and they can help you get that with your local contact for your US Motors, or of course, I'll give you my contact information if you have additional questions here. One last slide before we get towards the end here is, I mentioned videos. This is our QR code. If you take your phone and you scan this or take a picture of it, it should take you to this web page, and this web page will have the installation for the EZ13, the EZ16, Select Pro, and the Select Pro programming. The EcoTech is just held up right now, the one we have out on YouTube, just a little older version, still viable, but we're getting ready to reshoot this video and make it look like the rest of these. So the videos are great. I can't say enough about them. We actually brought people in and had them film for us, and it really came out nice. And it really is an installation video, exactly how to install those products. So that's what I had for you today. I kind of went through that about right on time. I thought it'd be about 45 minutes or so. So we do have time for questions, and I believe the best way to do questions from my counterparts here, Alex, was to do on the.
Hi. Yes, David. Hi. We have one question that came in, and then I have a couple others that came in separately. So one actually came into this meeting. So the
Sure.
first one is, do you have a graph for easy model performance versus Coleman?
Easy model performance versus Coleman. I don't have a graph that's going to show, because they will be, it can be different all the way around. Maybe I don't understand the question exactly. Each Coleman, not all of, so if we're looking at a constant torque motor, one of the Select Pro or the EZ13 versus the original OEM, we don't have every program profile for every OEM. We have as many as we possibly can. So that performance will change and vary from motor to motor as far as what's required. But I can tell you that there are two motor manufacturers that supply the OEM market, whether it's Coleman, all the other OEMs are original equipment manufacturers, ourselves and Gentech, or the old GE company. So majority of the motors that we build for ECM go directly to our OEM partners. And so as far as quality and performance, there shouldn't be much difference whatsoever. Hopefully that answers the question.
All right, thank you. And we do see your email, so I invite attendees to contact you directly if they have more questions. There are two more questions. Here's the next one. Can the EcoTech motor replace any other ECM product?
Good question, because one of the things that we found early on, because of the way this plug looks, and I'm going to try and jump back up here, because of the way that plug looks, it looks very similar to your constant torque motor. So there was confusion when these first came out, and guys were buying this trying to use it in a constant torque application. So the EcoTech uses high voltage. These are high voltage signals. So this is line voltage, 115, 208, 230 to tell the motor how to operate. When we looked at the EZ13 and the Select Pro at the beginning, those are using 24 volt signals. So if you took this motor and tried to use it as a constant torque, the 24 volt signals is not, the motor's not going to recognize those signals, and it's not going to run. And vice versa, if you put high voltage to that EZ13 or Select Pro, if you put that in here and hit this motor with the high voltage, you're going to burn up the motor control. So that's the answer to that question.
Okay. And one more. Is it possible to program the EZ13 or EZ16 motors?
They both have a generic profile on them. The EZ13 is the constant torque, comes with that generic profile, and does not have the ability to be programmed. And that's become a little bit of confusion out there, because we had one motor that did both, and now we've separated those out. So remember, as we're looking at, and I'm gonna arrow get all the way back up here to the top so we can just go a quick review before we let you go here today. Now, if we look at this one here, well, I changed it over there, but it didn't change up here. All right, close your eyes, 'cause it's gonna go fast. Don't want you to get dizzy. All right, so if we look at this, stop. All right, so if we look at this, remember the EZ13 comes pre-programmed and can't be reprogrammed. Constant torque, 5-pin plug, 5-pin plug. The blue version has the Bluetooth in it. That's the easiest way to remember. The EZ16 cannot be programmed in the field. It comes with a generic profile, but it has that adjustability using your Y1, Y2, your W1, W2 dials. So it can be adjusted, but it can't be programmed. So hopefully that answers and fills that in as well.
Okay. I do not see more questions here
Okay.
on the chat. We want to thank David Starich, Director of Business Development for Nidec Motors. Thank you so much. And I want to remind everybody that all these products and other products from Nidec are available on Control Central. So stay tuned. There will be a recording that will be sent out. So if you missed anything or you want to contact David, his information will be there. And thank you everybody for joining us. David, anything else you want to add for today?
Have a great week. I really appreciate everybody taking the time. Stay safe out there, and look forward to working with everybody, because we're gonna sell a ton of these motors. Let's get out and do it.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.